Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 13. We are going to talk about building graphical user interface in this chapter. This is the last chapter that we are going to cover in this semester, and I hope you have enjoyed this class. Next week you will have your final exam. Basically, it's going to be very similar to your quiz. It's going to be short answer. It's going to be questions that you are going to fix the programs, and it's going to be like concept as well as concept. It's going to cover everything from midterm up to what you have learned today. So in this chapter, basically, we are going to actually talk about constructing the graphical user interface. We're going to talk about the GUI layout. We're also going to talk about the interface components and as well as event handling. So these are some of the four main topics that we are going to talk about. Some of the Java construct that we are going to discuss will be JFrame, label, JBottom, JMenuBar, JMenu, item, action event, color, and so on. So basically, maybe you're familiar with some graphical user interface such as Windows. That's how Windows became very popular, because people, they don't have to instruct codes. They can actually go and click on certain things that they want to do. So basically, the GUI give our application some interface that consists of the menu buttons and windows and some graphical components, and it will look much better than the typical application that people were used to, like Linux, where all codes black and white and DOS and all that. So we're not talking about basically the class interface or interfaces of classes, nor the Java interface construct. We're actually talking about the user interface, which is the graphical user interface as part of the application that basically is visible on the screen for users to be able to interact with. So we are going to learn how to create graphical user interface with Java, and that will let us develop much better looking programs. So let's look at components, layout, and events. Basically, we will not be able to cover all the details of all the possible things that we can do, but we will discuss general principles and some good examples. All the GUI programming in Java is done through the use of basically the standard class libraries. And once we understand some of those principles, we are able to create some good looking layout and some good looking components by working with the standard library documentations. Some of the principles that we need to understand are basically what kind of elements can be shown on our screen. How do we arrange the elements? Or basically the arrangement is the layout. And how do we react to the user input? So basically components, as we can see here, are the individual part that the GUI is built from. There are things like buttons, menus, menu items, checkboxes, also text fields, and so on. The Java library also contains a lot of ready-made components for us, and also we can write our own. We will learn those important components and how we can create them in this chapter. Layout is the second part. How do we arrange those elements? Basically, arranging the components to form a usable GUI. So for example, we specify that a particular component should be below this other one, or this component should be kind of stretched or get resized and things like that. And we are going to use the layout managers. Another principle that we need to know is how do we react to user input, and that's the event. Basically, the button that we press, menu selections, and all of that will be basically how do we handle the events. So if a user activates a component, like if they can click on a button or select a menu item, their system will actually generate that event. And our system can receive a notification of that event, and we can then take a proper actions that we need to do it. So in here you see AWT and Swing. Basically Java has three graphical user interface library. The oldest one, as you can see on the left hand side, is called AWT, which is called Abstract Window Toolkit. And it was basically introduced as part of the original Java API. Then they have improved the library and they called it a Swing. That was added to Java. And the most recently one, the Java FX library, that's the one that is the newest one. And Swing Plus is also a better version of the Swing. So we will concentrate on using Swing mostly in this chapter. So Swing makes use of some of the AWT classes and replaces some of the AWT classes with its own version. And also it has many new classes that it has been added. Whenever there are equivalent classes in AWT and Swing, the Swing version have been identified by adding the letter J to it. Like for example, button, the class name button in AWT will have J button. The class frame will have J frame. The class menu will have J menu, and so on. So the classes starting with the J are the Swing versions, and we will use that. So in here we see the elements of frame. Basically frame consists of three main parts. The title bar, as you can see over there, an optional menu bar, and also content pane. Basically the appearance of the title bar depends on the underlying operating system. It can usually contain the window title and a few controls. And the menu and the content pane are under the control of the application. So we can add some components here basically to create a graphical user interface. So we can concentrate on the content pane first. So this is the source code for creating a frame. So we are importing all the Java library, and also we are importing the Swing, because remember we are going to use the Swing version. So in here we are basically using the J frame. As we have a J frame, that's why for Swing we use the J. The frame will be invisible and its content pane will be empty. So we can continue by adding label to the basically content pane, and so that's what we have in here to make the frame. So the content pane in here, we basically create this frame and the content in it. So in here we are adding basically the label to the content pane. So in here when we have the container content pane, this line gets the content pane from the frame, and we can always do this. The graphical user interface are basically added to a frame by adding them to the frame content pane. So that's what we are doing. So the content pane itself has a container. A container is a Swing component that can actually hold group of other components in it, such as maybe array, list of things and stuff like that. Then we create the label, the J label, and then we add it to the contents pane. So a label is a component that can actually display text and image. And then we have the last two lines here, frame.pack and frame set visible true. The frame.pack causes the frame to arrange the component inside of it properly. and to its size itself. We can always have to call the pack method on the frame after we have added or resized the component. So if we want to resize it, we have to always add the pack method in here. The last line makes the frame visible on the screen, and we can always start out with the frame being invisible so that we can arrange all the components and then make it visible to the audience. The next step in building the GUI is to add menu and menu items. So how do we do that? There are three classes that are involved in menu: JMenuBar, JMenu, and JMenuItem. In JMenuBar, an object of this class represents a menu bar that can be displayed below the title bar at the top of a window. And every window has at most one JMenuBar. JMenu is basically like a file, it's basically a single menu, like file, edit, or help menus. They are held in, basically these type of menus are held in a menu bar. Also, they could come up as a pop-up menu. And JMenu items are object of the class, represent a single menu item inside the menu, such as open, save, and things like that. So in here, this is the code that can create a menu bar and also several menus and menu items. So basically in here, the JFrame has a method called setMenuBar. So we can create a menu bar and use this method basically to attach our menu bar to the frame. So basically we are attaching it to our frame. Now that we create the menu and add it to the menu bar, we can put create the file menu in here. File menu, new menu, and we add the file. And basically we can add the menu item. This is the last part that we have to do. So we are going to add the menu items to the menu, and that's how we are doing it. So we have the label open and quick. So we have the labeled open and quit to the file menu. So up to now we created display of menus, but we didn't do anything to handle the event. So nothing happens when a user tries to select the menu. So now we can basically discuss the event handling part. As we said, events correspond to the user interaction with the components. Components are associated with different event types. Frames are associated with window events. Menus are associated with action events. Objects can be notified when an event occurs. Such objects are basically called event listeners. So centralize event receipt. In order for us to make our image viewer object a single listener to all the events from the menu, we need to do three things. First, we must declare in the class header that it's implement the action listener interface. We have to also implement a method with a signature. And also we must call the action listener method of the menu item to register image viewer object as a listener. So we can see it in here. So in here we implement the interface and define its method. And so in here we basically receive notification of an action. Then we will actually create swing frame and its component of it. And then we create the main frames menu bar. So that's the make frames menu bar, the frame that menu bar should be added to. So in here, a menu item is basically created, and the current object, which is the image viewer object, is registered as an action listener by passing this as a parameter to add action listener method. Basically, the files that we just discussed, we can actually go and find them in the projects. So under project chapter 13, you can find these image viewer projects that you can open. This file that we just talked about is image 0-2. Right now I opened this one, but so basically this one, you can just compile it and run it as the other ones. So the one that we just discussed is image viewer 0-2. Once we compile it, then we say new image. And then you can see in here that we have this image viewer, the menu bar, the menu bar, which is this, and then we have the menu, which is file itself, and then we have the menu item, open and quit. So, and both of them are doing an action, as you can see in here.